Hello guys, welcome back to another video, and today it is finally time to put the World Championship to rest, at least for the next month, because it is top 6. Now, I won't be doing a whole tournament analysis. I'm not going to be breaking down every single game. I'm not going to keep you here for like 10 hours. Instead, I'm going to show you selected games throughout the top 6 and sort of break down how the set went for all 6 players. So, starting off, here is the bracket. Now, this might be a little confusing. So, on the left, you have Bamboo versus Head. The winner goes directly to top 4. This gold cup in the middle represents top 4. So, whoever wins between Bamboo and Head goes straight to top 4. Whoever loses will go and play Kobasnik. And the winner between that player and Kobasnik will also go to top 4. And the same is true on the right side. You have myself versus Bodo, my good friend and teammate. Winner goes to top 4. Loser drops down to play Vinnie. And the winner between Vinnie and that other player will also go to top 4. And the loser between Kobasnik and the loser of Bamboo versus Head, and the loser of Vinnie versus the loser of myself versus Bodo, will be out of the tournament in 5th place. Now, this is important, because the minimum prize, 4th place, if once top 4 happens, if you get 4th, you lose all your games. No matter what happens, you are guaranteed $1,000. 5th place gets nothing. So, that is the single largest single set difference, except for the difference between 1st versus 2nd, like the grand finals. So this is essentially the most important match, arguably, other than the grand finals, for at least how much money you get. Now, this is because Bamboo had myself and Bodo up to this point. We have not lost a single set, whereas Kobasnik and Vinnie, respectively, have each lost 1 set already, and it's a double elimination tournament, meaning as long as you haven't lost 2 sets, you're still in the event. So if Bamboo versus Head and myself versus Bodo, the winners, they will not have lost any sets, and they will go into top 4 on winner's side. Whereas the people who lose will drop down, play Kobasnik and Vinnie, whoever wins between those. They will still advance to top 4, however, they'll be penalized. They'll be starting on loser's side, which means they'll have to play an extra game inside the top 4, which I can break down in the future. So, let's get into the first set, Bamboo versus Head, and I'll quickly go over the deck lists. So, you have Bamboo bringing US-German mid-range, pretty standard list. 1 Flampanzer, 1 Dive Bombing, 2 Blitzkrieg, Island Hopping, no Research, no Sunstrikes, nothing to that. Pretty standard Jaguar list. He is Team Mido, although he actually only runs 1 Mido, with a Kagashima and an AA gun, so it's sort of diversified but no Shinhodos. This Soviet-Japan self-damage, pretty standard list so far. There's like the 3 main aggro meta lists. And for his 4th list, he brought Mobilize. Now, a couple things worth noting. Air had been nerfed like 3 or 4 days, maybe 5 days, before deck submission, so people knew Air was worse. They didn't know if it was still good, or if it was now unplayable, or if so, if you had to change it up, go US ally, Japan ally. So, to be fair to Bamboo, they probably brought Air to previous events, and were like, well, Air is bad, and I want to bring an aggro deck. So, am I going to bring a German aggro deck or a British aggro deck? So that's sort of the choice between Heinz and Mobilize, or take a risk on an Air deck. And he went with Mobilize. I respect that choice. Now, his first round opponent is Head, with the glorious hair. He has Jaguar, pretty standard list. He is running Shinhodos. You'll see there's a... people line up between the Midos and the Shinhodos for this event. Then he has self-damage, pretty standard list. Then he has Britain, Japan, not Air, but it's a Britain, Japan control. It's a pin deck. Basically, the point of the deck is to pin all units your opponent plays, and then win with Commonwealth at the end of the day. And then his last deck is a German, Italy control deck. So, it's a bit more control heavy than Bamboo's, and I'm not going to show you all of the games. So, in the first game, well, okay, sorry. First, I'll get into bans. So, if we come over here and look at bans, Bamboo banned the self-damage deck, which is pretty good call. Self-damage is great into Jaggro, it's great into US mid-range, and it's great into mobilization. Self-damage is just sort of the anti-aggro meta deck. Not surprising to see Bamboo ban it. And then on his side, Head banned the Mobilize deck. I'm not exactly sure why. My best guess would just be that he's probably played like hundreds and hundreds of games against the other three decks in testing, and he presumably built this lineup with the idea that he'll be playing Jaggro against Jaggro US midrange and self-damage. And the Mobilize deck is just sort of like a wrench in the plan. He might have gone in thinking, I'm going to ban whatever the Brit deck is. If it's Brit Control, Resistance, Air, whatever, I'll ban it. And he's just like, Mobilize, maybe I'm better into that. Maybe it's bad, but I'm just going to ban it and stick to the game plan. Again, I can respect that, if that's why. So, in Game 1, it was Head on his Jur Italy control deck versus Bamboo on self-damage. This is a matchup which typically leans towards Jur Italy. However, it was incredibly close. It was a very, very close game. Bamboo just wasn't able to close it. Leopold came down, some Mare Nostrum started coming down, and he just couldn't end the game fast enough, although it was quite close. So, Head took a 1-0 lead. Then Game 2 was not close. Bamboo won with US-Germany versus the Britain-Japan pin deck. Just US-Germany had overwhelming board control, overwhelming board presence for the entire game, and he just couldn't pin. Head could not pin every single unit every single turn, and anytime he did not pin some units, Bamboo made the most of it, got the damage in, so Head was not able to finish it off with the Commonwealth, and that game was just not close. Absolute destruction brought down on that Britain pin deck, which is arguably the weakest deck in Head's lineup. So that tied it up 1-0, or 1 apiece, sorry, 1-1. Game 3 was a Jaggro mirror, everybody's favorite, which had Bamboo winning. Again, not really close. Bamboo drew Feigned Retreat. Kobasnik went not Kobasnik. Head went first. Did not draw anything, essentially. Like, he didn't draw any of his card draw, and lost absolutely hard. He got, like, maybe 10 damage in and just fully ran out of cards versus a Feigned Retreat. That's going to happen. So Bamboo takes a 2-1 lead with just self-damage left. This is the self-damage deck that he had a very close game with against the Jur Italy deck. And on Head's side, he has the pin deck, which he got bodied by, he got bodied with, and he has Jaggro. And having Jaggro as like one of your last two decks is usually pretty good. You can usually count on Jaggro to get a win. However, it's into self-damage last deck. And that is the unfortunate position Head found himself going into Game 4, which is arguably, Game 4, which is sort of the, make or break for Head. If he loses this game, he's in the, he's down into the losers bracket. So, I have timestamps, so I know where to go. And here we are, Bamboo bringing self-damage, only deck left, and Head bringing his Britain control deck. Now, this is a matchup which actually can be quite tricky for self-damage, because they don't have as much burst, and they don't have as many units, so it's going to be easier for them to get pinned down over and over and over. And they also can't take too much damage, because Head can just go all in with these Blitz Bombers, like a Monty and Hit Face Lancaster with Lancaster, and suddenly Bamboo's just looking at 2-turn lethal. However, for Head, these Honeys are not going to ever be safe. These Suseis are never going to be safe. He has to make the most of his units the turn he plays them. So Bamboo, keeping a good amount of card draw, and turn 2 Yak is going to be very good. Turn 2 Yak is usually very, very good for the self-damage deck. And in this case, Head has nothing to respond. Playing Honey from his perspective is just going to die to Red Dawn. So Bamboo starts pressing some early damage. And here, this is... the pin deck just creates so many awkward situations. Like, he could even kill the Yak with Type 94 Naval Power Surprise Attack. But at that point, is it worth killing the Yak, or is it worth just saving it to kill the 34th that are inevitably going to start coming down from the Yak? Because the Yak's only drawn once. So arguably, it hasn't gotten a crazy amount of value yet, but it is now eaten a surprise attack, which is, again, a pretty important card in this matchup. Here, Bamboo's probably just going to play SU. If I was in Bamboo's position, you can do SU Winter Warfare 34th. You'd get 2 buffs on your guy, on your 456th. You kill the Type 94, and you get down your 34th, as well as this tank, and then obviously you play the tank and the 34th on opposite sides, so that you can't get triple pinned by Susei. And that's exactly what Bamboo's going to go for. Plays the SU on the other side. And, ooh, unfortunate positioning. I feel like you would rather have the 6-6 than the 3-4 split. Or the 6-6 and the 5-3 split. So, this case, Head can just Susei, slow the damage down a bit. However, is that good enough? Can you Susei Naval Power? Maybe you should just do Crusader Naval Power, but maybe you need to save the Crusader. Again, like, Head's deck is just very unfortunate that Yak let Bamboo get so much down and had to spend a surprise attack on it. And now he's just in this incredibly awkward position. He goes for the Susei Pass, saving the Naval Power for Crusader Honey value. I do think that's correct. Now Bamboo goes for Scouting Party, second Winter Warfare, draw 2, kills the Bomber, gets another +1/+1 on the 456th. Well, +1 attack, more accurately, because the Winter Warfare damages it. And now I think this is a turn Head needs to do Crusader Honey Naval Power. And Naval Power the 4-4. If your opponent wants to move up the tank and attack into one of your 2-3 tanks, you can live with that. And if your opponent has counteroffensive and you die, then your opponent has counteroffensive and you die. You don't really want to be in that position on in Game 4. On winner's side, you don't want to just be like, well, it's turn 6. If my opponent has this card, I lose. Especially after how many cards he's drawn. However, you can't really play around it. Does Honey Naval Power Crusader afterwards to just draw 1 less card, heal 1 less health? And you can see the pressure Head's under, like, that. And there's no 2 ways to think about that. That is just a mistake. And Head said afterwards that he had actually been awake for, I think, well over 30 hours by this point. I didn't catch the reason why. I don't know if he just was busy with life and then had the cards tournament, so it was either to sleep or play in the tournament, or maybe the stress kept him up, like the anticipation. This is the biggest tournament of his life, at least the biggest cards tournament of his life. I know I certainly had trouble sleeping the day before, but that's a pretty big mistake. And Bamboo just pushes everything up to the front line, hits face for 5, and I would kill the Crusader here. I think the Crusader is a bigger threat. I mean, personally, I probably would have done double Red Dawn, killed both, instead of moving up one of the recons. I think leaving your opponent with a Honey here is a bit risky, but just because if they play Lend-Lease healed a lot, you want to. You're not in a great. You are in a great position. You're not in the best position you could possibly be in. Unfortunately for Head, he goes for the redeployment. Doesn't draw him a whole lot of anything. Like, you can research, gets him a Lend-Lease. Now you're getting somewhere. Do you reduce Avery or do you reduce Lend-Lease? I think you almost certainly reduce Avery here. And Bamboo is 1 damage off of lethal, I believe. If he plays Ura, that's 9, 19, 25, and he has credit to attack with one of the recons. So he's 1 damage or 1 credit off of lethal. With Ura, if he throws in a Red Dawn to get an extra +1/+1, it's a credit he's not attacking with recon, so he's 1 damage off lethal in a lot of different ways. Which is unfortunate. he can also just, he also has like a lot of different plays here. So he can just play the Ura, kill Honey, and drop your opponent down to 4 health. And you're probably going to win. You can also play Great Patriotic War to just delete their health total and put them down to, actually, they one-off lethal. No, sorry, they only have 7 credits. I was about to say, are they one-off lethal in a third way? They can Great Patriotic War, drop head to 6. That's a bit more dangerous of a play, because you're leaving Honey up. And he wants to keep this Great Patriotic War in the back pocket to either heal himself up if head's going for Monties and Bombers, or to just drop head down if head manages to heal past 30 into Commonwealth range. You just Great Patriotic War, reset it to 12, avoid Commonwealth lethal. So here, I think you want to kill the Honey. I would probably do it with, like upgrading from the people, or add from the people to your hand, and then just hit face for 16. You drop your opponent to 11, you remove Honey, and you keep yourself at a healthy 12. Now, obviously, there's an upside to taking the damage. You get you get 3 more damage, and you drop your opponent to 8. Bamboo choosing to use the Ura and kill Honey, just drop his opponent to 1. Again, this is a respectable play. Like, having your opponent at 1 health means they're dead to Winter Warfare. Bamboo has played 1 Winter Warfare already. Actually, that's not true. Bamboo's played 2 Winter Warfares already. But he does run Katyusha in his deck. He runs a 3rd Winter Warfare. I think he runs another Ura. So, yeah, Bamboo's looking like he can't lose this game. Head... Yeah, this is actually a funny play. Head can play Head can play Churchill. However, if it does not return the tank to hand, he's dead anyways. Which means the Churchill, 80% of the time, the Churchill dies. Like, the Churchill play loses him anyways. So his only play is to Lend-Lease into Monty, or go for a 20% chance on Churchill. And Lend-Lease into Monty puts you into a more favorable position. At least Head thinks so. And he draws the Monty. And, I mean, it puts him into this position. He's still dead to Caddy, he's still dead to Winter Warfare, he's still dead to KV, which I believe Bamboo runs. Bamboo, unfortunately, has none of these things. And he's gonna start wanting to take a look at his own health total. You have to be starting to get a little concerned about your own health total. But you have seen Monty gone. So, again, how do you lose from this position? I actually think playing the 34th was a mistake. Like, you're never going to need the unit on board. And the only way your opponent doesn't just immediately die is either by pinning everything again, or by playing Churchill Avery. And if you're playing Churchill Avery, you're just resetting the cost on your 34th for no particular reason. So, not a big fan of that play by Bamboo. Playing the Recon, basically. I think playing the Recon's good, because, again, other than Avery, Shelling is the other option, and if you play Shelling, it draws you another card. And unfortunately for Bamboo, Head does have the Churchill, and he actually has the Churchill plus the 3rd Type 94, which means he can double surprise attack any unit if he needs to. Head spends about 10 seconds trying to decide where to play this. Finally makes up his mind, and it actually returns the tank. So maybe he should have played Churchill before. Unfortunately, he's still at 1 health. So at this point, he can play Fortification, just heal out of Caddy Winter Warfare range, and then figure out how to remove these things later. That's the play I would lean towards. Unfortunately, you do not get to draw off of the Crusader this way. And I think he thought he had more credits than he actually did, because he plays a 2nd Type 94, or 3rd Type 94, plays 1 surprise attack, tries to pin the 34th, he can't, and then he passes. And the reason he passes is he doesn't want to give Bamboo a draw if he moves up. He doesn't want to give Bamboo lethal with Ura if he moves up. And good call, because Bamboo top decks the 2nd Ura. If that 94th had moved to the front line, Bamboo would have won the game with just Ura hit face for 8. But again, how does Head win this game? Like, his options are very, very limited. If he had a zero-cost Wellington in hand, he could top deck Shelling, hit face with Wellington, and then top deck Lancaster or maybe Wellington Sticks on the board. And here, Bamboo increases the ways Head has to win this game drastically. This is another pretty substantial mistake by Bamboo. He drops himself to 5 health. Now, this is bad because Head runs Lancaster, the 7-cost 5/4 Blitz Bomber, which means for 10 credits, it can hit face for 5. And Head has 10 credits. So Bamboo basically just makes himself dead if Head has Lancaster. Unfortunately for Head, he does not have Lancaster. So, makes room on his board with Crusader. And he's going to start playing out these Observer Cores, probably on the Sexton, so we can pin this 8-8 coming up. Chooses to actually reduce the cost on Blackwatch, but then he immediately plays the second Observer Core to reduce the cost on Sexton. Not a big deal. And here, he can take out the 6/6, he can play Blackwatch. And here, if you want to do some basic math, Ura, all of the orders in Bamboo's hand have been increased by 2 because of the passive effect of the Blackwatch, which means if Blackwatch dies, the cost goes down again. So, there is several ways for lethal here. The most direct is Ura, move up, attack Blackwatch. The Ura will deal 2 extra damage face, and then the second tank moves up and attacks face. You don't even need the extra damage. That's actually over lethal. However, Bamboo needs to see this. In fact, what you can even do is move up, attack, sickle the Blackwatch, and then play Ura for 3 because Blackwatch is dead, move up and attack first for 8. Yeah, there's some options. You can use the Red Dawn instead of the Sickle, same play. And here, Bamboo plays the Ura, moves up, so he just needs to attack Blackwatch and attack face. Like, he can kill the guard, and then he can hit face. Even if the Ura text was different, he would still just have lethal. You have 2 units that can attack for 8, there is a 6 health guard, and your opponent has 8 health. Very, very simple lethal here. But Bamboo attacks into the Churchill Avery. Which means that when the SU attacks Blackwatch, the overflow damage only does 2, leaving Head at 1 health. Now, there is 2 possibilities. There is the possibility that Head did not see lethal and was trying to remove the Churchill Avery because he was scared about carpet bombing, a potential carpet bombing. I'm not actually sure if Head runs carpet bombing, but a potential way to clear the front line, and this Churchill Avery moves up and it kills Bamboo. However, that would require removing 2 tanks and an 8/8 guard. So I don't think there's a way for Head to do that. The other possibility, and that's assuming that he did not see lethal, the other possibility that we have to consider is that Bamboo was trying to BM. He thought, I can actually kill him without attacking face. Because you hit Blackwatch, 2 extra damage goes through, you hit Churchill Avery, 6 damage goes through, 6 plus 2 is 8 lethal, without having to attack face. However, Ura does factor in heavy armor. So, the 8 attack, one of those attacks gets reduced by the heavy armor, so it's only 5 overflow damage. And 5 plus 2 is not 8. The funny thing is, even he could actually still do this and win if he wanted to BM. If he kills Blackwatch first, his credits, all his orders go back to their original cost, which means he can then play 1 cost to sickle on the Churchill Avery, and then attack it, and it will deal the 6 overflow damage for lethal. So, I never got confirmation. Like, I never heard if this was BM, if this was nerves. It is worth noting, Bamboo, this is by far the largest stage he has ever played on in KARDS. This is the first time he's ever played on stream in KARDS, like on a competitive stream. So maybe the nerves got to him. I don't know. But this play means that Head is now in the game. However, Head still needs to win. Again, top decking Lancaster Bomber is an immediate lethal. But unfortunately, he does not have Lancaster Bomber. He can do Sexton plus Surprise Attack, kill the 8-8. He can do Sexton and Surprise Attack to just pin both. He can do Susei Surprise Attack, trade, and play Blackwatch. He's going for holding up Ultra. And Head is once again back on 1 health, which means he's once again dead to Caddy and dead to the 3rd Winter Warfare. And, yeah, this is the situation he's stuck in. Chooses to just play out the Ryusei. I actually disagree with this, because if your opponent just plays out a tank, the point is it's pressuring lethal. Like, he has 5 damage on board. However, Bamboo has 9 cards in hand, and you have to count on all 9 of them not being the cards that kill you. And I don't think there is a world where Bamboo can't kill you and also cannot kill the Ryusei. So this is very ambitious. And there's still a world that, like, Bamboo just plays out some tanks and, like, uses, like, Sickle and Red Dawn to kill Sexton, and then you need to be able to pin the tanks to survive. So I'm not 100% behind this play by Head. And here, Bamboo throws out Sickle first, hits Ultra, and again, this is a huge mistake. Bamboo passes with 3 credits, which means Bamboo needs to be thinking about Ultra. In this situation, he was going to Sickle Sexton. Like, if you see, he drags Sickle, points it at Sexton. So the plan was presumably Sickle and Red Dawn into From the People to kill Sexton. And if the Sickle draws you into lethal, then it draws you into lethal and you win the game. However, Sickle is the one that draws. You should play Red Dawn first, go for it From the People, and then, if it triggers Ultra, you can now Sickle the Bomber and draw for lethal. You can play 33rd Recon, Sickle your own 33rd Recon, and you have 2 draws for lethal. That's the play I would probably go for, because at this point in your deck, you have so many draws for lethal. But unfortunately for him, he plays Sickle first, which means the only way he has to draw cards now is to Red Dawn his own Recon. Well, Red Dawn or From the People his own Recon, which he probably does not want to do. He does need to either heal or play Red Dawn to kill the Bomber. He chooses to Red Dawn the Sexton, then play Great Patriotic War, which heals Head from 1 to 12. Bamboo's own Great Patriotic War healed Head from 1 to 12. That is just brutal for Bamboo to be forced into that position, and he plays out all of his cards. And again, this is why I would have liked to see Ryusei still in hand. Here, Head has a lot of options. He can just shell in and go face. He can probably gonna want to play Convoy first. Convoy into 2nd Ryusei. And because of Bamboo's positioning, it means Ryusei can pin... Sorry, why do I keep calling it Ryusei? Susei. Not Ryusei. It means Susei can pin all 3. So he goes face, drops him to 5, or deals 5, drops him to 7, plays 2nd Susei, and this is lethal on board. With Bamboo, no way to stop it. In hand, what does he draw? He draws Sickle. So he can Sickle Sexton, or he can Sickle his own Recon. In this case, you're going to Sickle Sexton. And it draws him into a counteroffensive, which does absolutely nothing, because there's no longer any damaged units on board. Plays out the first rifles. I actually think playing out the 34th is better here, because, I mean, all of Head's Blitz units are bombers, so the guard doesn't really matter. Head drops Bamboo to 2 health, and here you can just do Honey Shelling, although that draws him a card. He can also just play Blackwatch. Unfortunately for Head, but his bombers are in a position where he can't guard both of them. Chooses to play Shelling, which draws Bamboo an extra card, draws him the 456th, which does nothing, and he draws into a second 456th, which does nothing, meaning that Bamboo has just thrown the game. Completely thrown. He had lethal on board, but after a series of misplays, he's thrown the game, and Head has brought it back and won with his pin deck, making it 2-2, and we're going to Game 5. However, Game 5 is now J-Grow into self-damage, which everyone will tell you is heavily, heavily favored for self-damage. And because it's Game 5, I will go ahead and show you that game as well. Head looking to keep Signal. Now, Signal is a very polarizing card in this matchup, because if you keep Signal and your opponent plays 456th, every time a unit dies, you buff it their 456th, and it's going to end the game really, really fast for you. However, self-damage does a lot of damage to itself, and Signal is your most efficient damage output card. So, if you play Signal on turn 1, it usually means the game is going to end either way by turn 6, and it's just a matter of, does your opponent hit you in the face twice with a 10-10 456th before you can just blitz out enough units to kill themselves to trigger Signal until you win. Head chooses he does not want Signal, and instead gets this brutal bicycle Type 94 start. However, Bamboo answers with Winter Warfare, kills all 3. This is part of the reason why self-damage is so favored. However, he's forced to be playing a little off-curve. Here, 456th, Red Dawn Whirlwind, get a guard up, remove your opponent's unit. This is just being the most damage conscious. You're trying to reduce the amount of damage your opponent can deal to you, while trying to maximize stats on this 456th, and Head top decks Raiding Brigade, which is brutal. That's, like, just so good for Head. Now, Bamboo responds with the First Rifles, which is one of the best cards in his deck in this this matchup. However, Head responds with Sendai, and because Bamboo played the Red Dawn 2 turns previously, he does not have an answer to Sendai, which means he cannot get the guard back. And then he plays Yak and SU both in the wrong position. And what I mean by in the wrong position is when Sendai dies, it will spawn the First Rifles on the far right side of the board. Which means there is now an SU and there is a Yak 7 in between the guard and the HQ, which means when Sendai dies, your HQ will not be being guarded. This is a huge mistake. You always want to play your non-guard units on the left side of your HQ against a deck with Sendai Regiment. This is a very, very important lesson, which, I mean, I think it's one of the most important lessons that you can learn. It's up there with playing around Carpet Bombing on turn 7 against Britain, or playing around Root Out on turn 4 against Germany. Now, Head, using the Chad Shinhodo Master Race card, decides to just hit face for 5. Drop Bamboo to 7. Bamboo has very, very limited healing. The Yak does another damage, which means Bamboo is now on 6 health. And he is nowhere near where he needs to be to end out the game. He does not have, like, a 10-10 456. He does not have multiple 34th guards on the board. He throws out Ura, which lets him trade off the Yak, so he stops taking damage from that. He lets him get some damage through and take the front line. And his idea is, he has second Ura in hand, he has counter-offensive, which can do some burst, he has KV, which can do some burst, and he has Caddy, which he can do some burst. So his hand is very burst-centric, so despite being on 6 health, this could be a close game. However, a second Shinhodo comes in, and does another 3 damage. Which means Bamboo is now down to 3 health. There, he top decks the From the People, which is incredibly important, which means, because it means he can kill the Sendai, he can get his First Rifles back. He can't play Red Dawn on its own. He has to go for From the People, which means he cannot play KV down with it at the same time. but he can play the 34th, which could theoretically try to set up some sort of Ura lethal if Head puts multiple units in the front line. And this is exactly what we see. His alternate play would be to just caddy and attack face. Obviously, that's not as good. And here, Head has some choices. He can play Audacity, try to stick the bomber, or he can play Feigned and start trying to look for cards that end out the game, like Sendai Regiment or not Sendai Regiment, Signal Regiment, or Bombing Raid, or Akitas. Even Akitas can be dangerous in this position. However, Audacity hits the first rifles. He has Surprise Attack to pin the 6/6, and he puts it in this position. Now here, Bamboo, this is again a very, very close game. Counteroffensive cannot target artillery, so he can't just go for a caddy. Caddy plus Ura means that he can push face for 7 to 8 damage, but that's not enough. His only response, he needs to respond to this bomber. His only fighter is gone, which means the only play he can do is Sendai the bomber. So he's now top-decked first rifles into Sendai, both to stay alive, and he is in a position where he could theoretically win with an Ura. And here, he's going to caddy, and I think that's gotta be a mistake. I don't know why you killed the Type 94 here, instead of going face. I mean, I guess it's because your opponent has 2 cards in hand. You know one of them is an order, and you know your opponent would have killed you with Bombing Raid already. So you know you're either about to face Feigned Retreat, or you're about to face Desperate Measures. Fortunately for Head, it is the Feigned Retreat, which means Bamboo just has to not die to top decks. Unfortunately, and fortunately for Bamboo, Head does not run Medo regiments, which means Sendai, or Shiden, Akita 50-50s, well, much more than 50-50 on this board, or Bombing Raid are really the only cards that can end this game. Maybe if he draws Signal first, he can get lethal, but boom, the KV comes down, which means Head is also going to have a very limited number of draws. However, Head only needs 1 draw because he top decks his Bombing Raid for the remaining 3 damage, and in a absolute nail biter, brings it back from literally being dead on board, not even dead in hand, and Bamboo needs to spot this crazy series of cards and plays that are lethal. This is dead on board, just 2 attacks, 1 directed into the guard, 1 directed into face, and he's out. He's down into loser side, but this does not happen. Instead, Bamboo misses lethal in game 4, he goes on to lose game 4, and in an absolute nail-biter, he goes on to lose game 5, and drop down into the losers bracket to play Kobasnik, and Head is through to the top 4. Absolutely insane. Absolutely insane. And this will lead us into the second side of winners, top 6, which is myself versus Bodo Burrito. Now let me pull up our decks. I have Jagro, standard Jagro. I'm bringing Midos, not Shinhodos. We saw Shinhodo came in very clutch in the game against self-damage. If those had been Midos in that game, he would have lost that game. That is how insane that is. I have US-France Unitless. Now this is a hilarious deck. This is a very polarizing deck. This deck basically cannot beat Jagro, and it basically cannot beat US midrange. However, this deck almost cannot lose to German Italy, and it almost cannot lose to self-damage. And it almost cannot lose to basically any kind of control. And it's pretty good into air. It's like 60-40 into air. So this is a very polarizing deck. This is a deck where you might be in a position where it's like, I can't lose, and you might be in a position where it's like, I can't win, before the game even starts. Now I have Soviet France control deck. This is a pretty funny deck. I can tell a quick story about this deck. I saw CCMS bring this deck to group stage, and I saw that he went like 5-0 or 6-0 in his group, and I was just looking at this deck, and I'm like, I don't understand why this deck is good. And then I played it, and I just kept winning. Like, I didn't feel like I should win, but I just kept winning. Against everything. Like, I was winning against aggro, I was winning against control, I was winning against everything. I still think that deck was not fully optimized, so I made like 6 or 7 card changes, and it started winning even more and more and more. I'm like, this is insane. I don't know why this deck is good, but it seems to be good, so I'm just gonna bring it. And it got me to top 6 on winner's side. And then my 4th deck is a Britain-Italy control. That's right, this isn't Britain-Italy air, it's Britain-Italy control. And basically my idea was, this seems good into these mid-range decks, like the US Germans of the world, the self-damages of the world. And I knew I didn't want to bring air, I knew I wanted to bring a deck which is good into Italy, but also good into mid-range. And I landed on this one, where it's basically just a ton of guards, a ton of unit-based healing, and you have Commonwealth as the win condition, and it has the Italy removal aspects of Decima line for a day. I'm actually running 1 Decima, 1 Human Torpedo, just because the curve of the deck is really high. This is not a great deck. There's no honeys in this deck. I know you can't actually see it because my face is currently in the way. However, the curve of this deck is really, really, really slow. However, it has supply shortages. So basically, my idea is, against Jagro, it doesn't matter if they flood the board in the early game, because you're just going to play supply shortages on 3, destroy everything they have, and then start spamming out guard. And that's why it's really good into US midrange, it's really good into Jagro. This deck would probably be absolutely garbage into air. So, those are my decks. Let us look at Bodo's decks. Bodo and I practiced quite a lot for this tournament together, that is. So, we see Bodo bringing self-damage, his signature deck, he loves this deck. Bringing US German midrange, bringing Jagro with Shinhodos, not with Mitos, but with Shinhodos. So we've now seen 2 decks with Shinhodos, 1 deck with Mitos, and 1 deck with Mitos and some other stuff. And his 4th deck is Italy Control. So this is probably just like the foremost meta decks. This is just like as meta lineup as you can get without Brit Air, like following the nerf of Brit Air. If you're bringing 4 non-British meta decks, these are the 4. And it got him to top 6 winner side, so there is certainly something to be said about bringing meta decks and playing them better than your opponents. So if we take a look into bans, Bodo decided to ban my Britain deck, because, again, it just crushes these mid-range decks. It's going to crush self-damage, it's going to crush US mid-range, it's going to be good into Jagro, it's going to be good into Italy. It's just like a deck that's kind of going to be favored into anything he plays. And if your opponent has one of those types of decks, it's usually good to ban, 1, just because it's good into everything he plays, and 2, it means I have a comfort deck to bring round 1. I have a deck where I can just start off with a win. And usually you don't want that, especially if you're in like a very rock, paper, scissors type matchup where like your opponent could risk hard losing based on what deck they bring first. You don't want them to have a comfort pick. On my side, I banned self-damage. And this is because self-damage absolutely destroys Soviet France, and it, like, absolutely even harder destroys Jagro. And I knew I was not going to have Soviet France or Jagro banned. So I had to make a choice. It was that, or I could try to ban US midrange, or I could try to ban Jagro, because this US France deck, again, cannot beat US midrange and it cannot beat Jagro, which means one of my 3 decks cannot beat 2 of his 3 decks. And this is a format where every deck has to win. So, with that in mind, my US France deck needs to beat his Italy deck. But it's going to, like, 99% of the time, which means I have to get the matchup US France versus Italy if I want to win the set. And if we take a look at game 1, don't mind us saying Bamboo versus Head up here. This is myself versus Bodo. I brought Jagro into game 1, just because it's probably my most all-around good deck with self-damage gone. It's the deck that's going to be, again, it's kind of a comfort deck. It's a deck that's going to be good into anything he brings. And Bodo makes the correct call in bringing his Druid Leaf first, because this is the deck which, if he can get it to win before it has to play against US France, he's almost immediately cinched the series. So, we get into this matchup. And I'm looking like a pretty good opening hand. 2 cavalry regiments and a beef, which means turn 1, cavalry move up, pulls beef, turn 2, attack with cavalry, attack with beef, move up 2nd cavalry. And if we look at Bodo's hand, he does not have his Careless Talks. So he pretends to hold up a Careless Talk. Here it's better to just play a unit than not play a unit. So I play out the 2nd cavalry, see that he does not have Careless Talk, and I hit face for 6. Or 4, sorry. And now have 6 damage in the front line. This is a position where it looks like this is going to be a very, very easy Jaguar win. So here, 2 Mitos in hand, kind of awkward. Type 94, hit face for 4. My opponent's now at 12 health. And he is a turn off of Root Out. And here, Bodo holds up Decisive Defense, which is absolutely crushing against this board. It will trade into my entire board. And I know this. I also know if I pass, then I risk losing all 3 of these units to Root Out. However, if I move up, attack with everything, kill the guard, I can't get Mito to the front line. And if I do this, my opponent might just play Root Out, in which case I'm going to play 2nd Mito and Bicycle Regiment, just get my entire hand to the front line. Or he has to play Decisive Defense again. He has to waste the same 3 credits he wasted the previous turn, doing it again. Now here, I can once again attack with everything, kill the guard, and play Mito. However, I can't attack face with the unit in the front line and play Mito to the front line. Now, I could just play Bicycle Regiment, or I can do what I do this turn, which is play Bicycle Regiment to trigger any potential other countermeasures, and move a 2nd Mito to the front line. And my idea here is he's going to be forced to play Decisive again, which means he will only have 2 credits left. And with those 2 credits, there's only 2 cards in his deck that will use 2 credits, and it's his remaining 2 Sudden Strikes. Now, unfortunately, he does have his other Sudden Strike. So Bodo Sudden Strikes the unit with the highest attack, and the lowest operation cost, and holds up Decisive again. And here, I can't wait around forever. I just simply can't. I can play another Cavalry Regiment to the front line, I can move a Bicycle Regiment up to the front line, but I have enough credits that I might as well start triggering Decisive and getting this damage in. So I do this, drop my opponent to 8 health, Mito on the board, meaning that he will go down to 6 if Mito dies. And this is almost lethal threatening already. However, Bodo finally can play these 2 cards that he's been holding in his hand on the far left for a while now, which is 989, Mare Nostrum, heal for 6. And this is really, really bad, because now I'm in a position where my hand is completely empty. I'm looking for Feigned Retreats, I'm looking for keys, I'm looking for Shidens, I'm looking for anything that's not just like a random 1-drop. Now, Type 94 is pretty good, lets me remove the Mare Nostrum unit. And I just decide to play out the Raiding Brigade on nothing, because beats it getting discarded. Like if he just annihilated Mito here, he would discard Raiding Brigade. And Bodo can finally clear the front line for the first time since turn 1. The front line is clear. He's at 8 health. He's down Mare Nostrum. However, I am out of cards in hand. 22nd Infantry, very good draw. Means I'm going to top deck another card. However, if Bodo's able to just play Wolfpack, like for example, if Bodo had Wolfpack this turn, he can kill the 2/2 Wolfpack. If he had Mare Nostrum Wolfpack, that would just be the nail in the coffin for this game. Now, this Root Out is the only way he has to kill 22nd Infantry, and he knows his win condition at this point is me not finding Feigned. He wants to make it as difficult as possible for me to find Feigned, which means limiting my card draw. Which means that, as counterintuitive as it seems, Bodo's best play, and he does do it, is just pick Root Out and play it killing both of my units and reducing the stats on both of his units. And unfortunately, it's not a Rado. It is not Feigned Retreat. It is in fact a Desperate Measures, which kills both units. Pretty good. I now have Nikita in the front line. And Bodo, very clutch, top decks his Bologna Regiment, which means that's another 6 health of guard. Very, very awkward to get through. Key draw seems pretty good from my perspective. However, Bodo's been holding on to Schwalbe double Lion for a day, for a very long time. He has quite a few options to kill this Key. And with Key going to die, I am once again stuck in a position where I can't really win. I'm slowly gaining an advantage, but if Bodo draws a Mare Nostrum for 1 turn, the game is over. Another Akita is not what I want to see. I'm looking for these Erados. I'm looking for Dina to draw me Erados. But these Akitas could theoretically end the game. If both Akitas hit face, Bombing Raid is lethal. Panther G, just getting as many units on the board as possible. Kills one of the Akitas, it hits the Panther G, which is kind of awkward. Third Mido top deck. Which means Bodo is now down to a 4 health. However, I cannot attack Akita in. I would like to attack Akita into the guard, which would make Shiden top deck lethal. However, if I attack Akita into the guard, I actually just die. Schwalbe, Panther G, move up, attack is 13 damage. I have 13 health. Bodo has literally attacked me once this entire game, and he has lethal on board. So here, I have to pass. Second Annihilation draw. Again, not really what Bodo wants. He's looking for his Mare Nostrums. He's looking for his Wolf Packs, which are going to just put this game away. Neither of us are drawing what we want to see. And again, Bodo's functionally at 4 health. And this Akita has a chance to drop him to 2. And Bodo, he holds up the 1. He's saying he's 1 credit off of lethal, which is true. Flampanzer plus Bologna plus Schwalbe face, Panther G move up, and then he is 1 credit off of being able to attack with that Panther G. So he hits face with Schwalbe, drops me to 6. And he's trying to keep as many units on the board as possible and trying to keep his guard undamaged. Akita, unfortunately for him, hits Flampanzer, meaning he cannot play attack in with the Flampanzer, meaning he has to damage the guard, meaning Shiden top deck is lethal. Anything other than Shiden top deck is game over. And I draw the second Befehlswagen. Bodo takes game 1. And from my perspective, this is it. This is over. It's already done. Germany, Italy got the win. I was favored in this matchup, but things just didn't work out. Sure, Italy got through. It doesn't matter if I win the next 2 games, because the US-France deck will never beat his 2 remaining decks. I will never be able to get the needed win on the US-France deck. And that's just the reality. After game 1, which was like maybe 10 minutes long at most, I'm already over. It's already over. From my perspective, I woke up the morning, so many technical difficulties to get to this point, and I play a 10-minute game of Jaegro where I don't draw Feigned Retreat, I don't draw Erados, and it's over. The entire winner's side run is done. However, just because it's a 90, 95%, 99% favored matchup, it's a card game. Anything can happen. So, game 2 was a Jaegro mirror. I just figured I'm going to bring Jaegro again. Bodo brought Jaegro. It was a very, very close game. I had lethal on board. Bodo top-decked Shinhodo to deal the last 3 damage. Needed, at like 1 or 2 health, and I had a Shiden on board. Crazy close game. Game 3, I'm now down 2-0, but again, score doesn't matter because I need to win with the US-France deck. I bring Jaegro a 3rd time. Bodo now just has his US-Germany midrange deck. He has 3 chances to win with US-German midrange. Game 1, well, game 3, but the first game on his US-German midrange, I bring Jaegro, and just completely crush him. I get an insane hand. It's not even close. It's completely unfair. Game 4, I bring the Soviet-France control deck. And again, not even close. The game was much longer, and maybe there was ways he could have played differently to try to win, but he doesn't know my hand. I had 2 Petliakovs, and Petliakov stops all deployment effects, and the US-German frontline deck is like 90% deployment units. So game 4 went on for a very long time, but kind of just not that close, just utterly destroyed. So I bring it back to game 5. I go down 2-0, I bring it back to game 5, and yeah, I'm now going US-France into US-German. This is a matchup which is like easily 80-20, 85-15, maybe even 90-10. Against certain versions of the deck, it's actually much more winnable. However, Bodo is playing just about the worst version of the deck for me. Like, he's playing the version that is strongest into US-France. So, this is game 5. Winner goes into top 4. And we look at the mulligans. I mean, honestly, I could keep strat bombing. Going second, it's a little slow. Although Gunship Mission Patrol Torpedo Attack's already a good hand. Bodo keeps Combat Engineers, Red Devils, mulligans the other 2 cards. Gets back Sherman 5th Rangers. He's going first. This is already really good for me. He doesn't have 34th Infantry. This is already really, really good for me. This is sort of the ideal hand where US midrange just starts with very few cards, doesn't get the 34th to gain the huge card advantage. If I am able to limit Shermans, I'm able to just win. If it's just we're both top decking back and forth, I will win the game. I just need to stop the full hands playing out like 10 units at a time, huge we can do it boards. I need to stop those. However, it is with Red Devils, it is impossible for me to stop potentially drawing from Sherman. So here, I have to choose between passing. I can torpedo attack the Whirlwind if I really want to, but it's not great value. So I feign playing Counter-Strike. Bodo decides that he wants to get another unit to the front line rather than playing Sherman, which is actually a good call because it's impossible for me to remove both of these US units. I drop my 5th Rangers, kill Whirlwind because I can't kill the Red Devils because of the +1 credit. And here, Bodo can Sherman, but it means he's sacrificing the 4-4. Like, he's sacrificing the 5th Rangers, or he's trading in Red Devils. And that doesn't leave him in a great position. It leaves him in a position where Defend in Depth can kill any of these units. Leaves him in a position where DFA is guaranteed to hit a 4-4. So he decides to trade into the 35T because I play basically no units. He throws out the half-track as well. And here I have Gunship Mission on half-track, Torpedo Attack on the 5th Rangers, and Bodo has 3 cards in hand, 1 card on board. I have full health, 6 cards in hand. Up until this point, up until turn 6, this is basically almost as good as things could have gone. Obviously, Bodo's hand could be like 4 Shermans, and he doesn't draw any 1-drops, and like by the time he starts playing Shermans, I'm just like doing DFA into DFA into DFA and throwing out Liberations and healing like 20. Sure, there is worlds where there is better hands, but like, if I'm realistically looking for a way to win this game, so far everything that has happened is what I want to see. Dive Bombing is basically a dead card. We can do it's pretty good, but not if all of his units are dead. However, this 99th Infantry makes a 4-5 Red Devils, and I do not have Torpedo Attack. He's down to 3 cards, which means this Defend in Depth cannot kill Sherman. It cannot kill the Red Devils. I throw a Strategic Bombing, limit his credits, kill the 99th, damage Sherman to bring it into patrol range on the following turn. And here Bodo draws the 32nd, which means he can now start getting more units on the board. He's seen 1 board clear come out. He can even do 32nd. We can do it. And Bodo and I, because we've practiced this matchup in particular so many times, we know this matchup is not about face damage. This matchup is entirely about just getting units onto the board. Just trying to get as many units onto the board as quickly as possible, because the US France deck is really, has a ton of removal, but the removal's expensive, and almost all of it targets a single unit at a time. So if you have 6 units, and I can only play 2 pieces of removal a turn, and every turn, instead of attacking face, you play 4 units, and I'm only removing 2 a turn, and you're just playing 4 a turn, I will eventually die. So, I heal with Call to the Colonies, I patrol to kill the Sherman, but I still don't have an answer to this Red Devils. Here, Bodo expertly plays around Stars and Stripes by choosing not to play the 32nd, otherwise Stars and Stripes would kill all 4 units. And again, he's at 4 cards, and this Defend in Depth can't deal 5 damage to the Red Devils. So I'm once again in a position where I can't quite clear the board. I can Stars and Stripes and then do Defend in Depth on the Skytrain if I wanted. I don't think that's a great play, just because I think at this point I need Defend in Depth to kill the Red Devils, or potentially like a Hellcat. This could just be like a Hellcat move up attack turn. And Bodo draws Island Hopping, the best card in his deck for this matchup. Gets out 32nd. He's not even playing Island Hopping this turn. And again, this just shows how much he knows the matchup. It's not about attacking face with every single unit. It's about building a board. And here he attacks face with the 32nd rather than the Red Devils to play around Counter-Strike, the destroy a unit that attacks the HQ, so he attacks with the smaller unit. My best play here is High Altitude Bombing. Does not kill the Red Devils. And here, Island Hopping's coming out. Here, Bodo sees I'm desperate. He sees he can start pressing the damage. Like, how on earth am I supposed to deal with this? And maybe I can live another turn. Maybe I can live 2 more turns. But I am not winning this game. It's turn 9 and it's over. Remember, on turn 5, I was looking like I was winning. And turn 9, this game is dead done and buried. And yeah, this is why the matchup is so insanely difficult. My best play is to play Phony War, which draws Bodo 5 cards. I mean, just absolute masterclass in this matchup by Bodo. I think there's only one play I would have done differently. I think maybe he should have played We Can Do It slightly earlier. But yeah, I stood 0 chance in this game. And yeah, we don't have to sit through here. Bodo plays some more units. There is no card in my entire deck which is keeping me alive here. I can do Liberation, I can clear some units, I can survive 1 more turn. Hellcat comes out, another 5th Rangers, it's just more units in the front line, I'm down to 3 health. And yeah, I just can't even kill the Red Devils. At the end of the day, the Red Devils is an 8-12. You can make it a 10-14 with the second 99th. That Red Devils got played on turn 2 and never died. And yeah, with that, Bodo takes a 3-2 victory, goes into the top 4, and I drop down to play against Vinnie. So, you have Head and Bodo guaranteed top 4. Kobasnik versus Bamboo, myself versus Vinnie for the remaining 2 slots in top 4. And this is just the way the stream went. This is not my choice to keep you all anxious about whether or not I am in top 4 or whether I am out in 5th. The stream's next matchup is Bamboo versus Kobasnik. So we've seen Bamboo's lineup. It's 4 pretty aggressive mid-range decks. And if we take a look at Kobasnik's lineup, he has German-US Heinz. Now this is a deck which has fallen out of popularity, but I don't think it's necessarily fallen out of strength. This is a deck that has a lot of tempo potential. It's just not quite as favorable because it lacks as much sort of consistent draw. The units aren't as sticky as US midrange. You don't have the 30 seconds to just throw out a ton of units and don't care about hand size. You don't have the Shermans to get that chunky draw 2 unit in the mid game. You lack the tempo removal of self-damage. So it's a 4th deck. Let me put it that way. It is a 4th deck. Then he has US-German midrange. Pretty similar lineup. This one is slightly more removal focused. 2 sudden strikes, 2 dive bombings, only 1 blitzkrieg. No island hopping. He has 2 off-meta control decks. He has the first one is Britain Poland, pretty odd Legions deck, and then he has the Soviet France control deck, pretty similar to mine. And if we take a look at the bans, Bamboo banned the Britain Poland control deck. Again, this might likely have just been about banning what you don't know. He's probably played against Heinz. He's definitely played against US midrange. He's might have even played against Soviet France, because there has been a decent number of Soviet France players on ladder, and there might have been Soviet France players in his group. Britain Poland? Who knows? That's a very, very rare deck. And from his perspective, Kobasnik just bans the fastest deck. Not his decks are slightly slower than Bamboo's on average. They're slightly more mid-range, and the mid-range decks are slightly more control-oriented mid-range. So just ban the fastest deck as Jaggro. Pretty good call. I think maybe banning self-damage could have been slightly better. But I don't think it's going to have a huge impact. And this was a set where I struggled to find a game to show. I wanted to show a game, at the very least, just to be fair. So I will show one game. I'll show game 2. Now, game 1 was a US-German mid-range mirror. Bamboo went first. He just drew 30 seconds. He drew 2 30 seconds in opening hand, and then also 2 blitzkriegs by like turn 2. So basically, he's down 3 cards while going first. And as you can imagine, he lost that game. Very hard. Was not close. So Kobasnik takes a 1-0 lead. Oh, I have audio on. Sorry. And game 2 is self-damage versus Heinz. This is a matchup probably favored towards self-damage, but Heinz does just have some crazy burst potential. And here we see Kobasnik has 2 Befehlswagons and Greif. This is kind of the nuts hand that Heinz can have sometimes. And here, he can play out the Combat Engineers to set up Panzer A move up to pull beef, or Panzer A Greif move up and attack. Or you can play Panzer A to set up Combat Engineers, Greif, move up attack. I would play Combat Engineers here first, personally. And the reason is, if your opponent's turn 2 play is Red Dawn on the least valuable unit in your hand, you are fine with that. And if your opponent passes, like they just pass on turn 1 and it goes to you, or sorry, they pass on their turn 2, like let's just say they fully don't play anything, what you're going to do is Panzer A move up. If your opponent plays a T60, your play is going to be, or T80, your play is going to be Panzer A move up. If they play a 456, your play is still going to be Panzer A move up. Your play regardless is Panzer A move up, and the Befehlswagons are not getting buffed by Combat Engineers anyways. So this Combat Engineers is essentially doing nothing in this hand right now, so you might as well play it now to get a +1 attack on the Panzer A if it survives, and if it dies, it's eating a Red Dawn, and you're fine with that. Now, Bamboo has Yak, which is by far the best card he can play in this situation, going first, turn 2. And that means, if Kobasnik had played Combat Engineers, this Panzer A would be able to kill it. He would have been able to play Greif, Panzer A, move up, operating for free, attack, kill Yak, still get the 2 Befehlswagons, and he would have 5 units on board to Bamboo's 0. Instead, he has 3 units on board to Bamboo's 1, which means this Yak sticks. And with an 845th plus sickle, this Yak is sticking again. And Kobasnik's 1 credit off of doing some pretty crazy turns. He's 1 credit off of Panzer F, Greif, kill everything. He's 1 credit off of Martyr, Greif, drawing a bunch of cards, so that means Yak triggers a second time. And here, Bamboo has a 0-cost 34th, but the other cards in his hand are looking kind of clunky. And you do have to be worried about the number of cards the number of cards Heinz has in the front line. So, for example, if Bamboo just played the 34th and, I don't know, played like a Zukov, and then attack face with the Yak. If Kobasnik plays Blitzkrieg, he can trade off the Panzer A and hit face for 12. Which means Bamboo can theoretically, and then the Yak is going to take extra damage. So Bamboo could theoretically be dropped to 4 health next turn by Blitzkrieg. If it doesn't deal with these units on board. Now obviously he's going to, because you'd have to be pretty brain dead not to do anything against these units in this position. Here I actually disagree with this play. He decides to kill the Panzer F. So again, a Blitzkrieg here is not dropping Bamboo to 4, he is dropping him to 5 because he traded off the Yak. However, a Blitzkrieg here, and you are scared. Blitzkrieg, Kobasnik will be left with 2 3/3 tanks in the front line, which Bamboo does not have a way to answer in hand. Now, unfortunately, Kobasnik does not have a Blitzkrieg. And he could do Martyr plus Greif, and draw 3 cards. He has to trade off 2 of his units, and I think that is his best play, just Martyr with Greif, draw 2 cards. He instead goes for the he goes for the dive bombing, trying to keep as many units on the board as possible, and this is because a potential Blitzkrieg draw could end the game. Bamboo can do Zukov first, look for a 456th, look for a 34th. He instead gets first rifles. And here he does something I disagree with, which is play out first rifles. Well, yeah, I do sort of have to disagree with this play. Because Kobasnik is running Pursuit, Kobasnik is running the Jagd Bomber. This first rifles has a lot of ways of being sent to hand. Which will lose the stats, it will lose the Blitz, and you're not even using the Blitz this way. If it's a Pursuit, you're also taking an additional 8 damage on top of that. And again, unfortunately, for Kobasnik, he does not have these cards in hand. He also does not have a Blitzkrieg to kill both copies of first rifles and punch face for 6. So, he plays out what he can. This first rifle sticks on the board, and a Red Dawn draw is huge because your health doesn't matter as long as the board is empty. If Kobasnik doesn't have a front line, he has almost no burst potential in this deck. So Bamboo's fine dropping to 10 health, 8 health, 6 health even, as long as he has the front line. If he gets the front line, the game's almost over. So here he plays the 456th, just got another guard on the board. I'm unsure why he played this to the left of the HQ. Does Red Dawn, kills one of them, and then trades off with 2 units to kill the other 2. He's now down. Kobasnik is now down the front line. The front line is gone, and his hand has some good cards in it, but it's just so expensive to use. Even with Greif, it's so expensive to use. I mean, he could do Greif, Wirbelwind, Martyr, and then kill the 456th. He draws a card. And he sticks a 3-1 and a 3-2 in the front line with a 3-2 and a 1-1 in the support line. He instead just holds on to the Greif, he holds on to the Martyr, looking for this perfect unicorn turn that is not gonna happen. Like, you want to keep Greif for the perfect moment, because there's moments where Greif is just the single most powerful card in the game, but your opponent has a first rifles on board. Like, you're running out of cards, your opponent's going to get a 6-3 to the front line potentially next turn. Where is this perfect Greif turn coming? And Bamboo gets out the KV here because he knows this KV is going to deal a lot of damage. This KV is going to end the game quickly. This KV, the only response is Pursuit and Jagd Bomber, and again, if Kobasnik had those, he would have played them on the first rifles. If he had them now, he would still even consider playing them on the first rifles. So 2 38Ts just means he takes 4 damage, collects tanks in the support line, which, again, this could be a huge pop-off turn if, for whatever reason, Bamboo just, his internet goes out and he passes the turn. Kobasnik suddenly can move 5 tanks to the front line and top deck a Blitzkrieg, and the game's over. Now, that would require a miracle, because Bamboo is instead in this position where he's probably going to win. He could potentially get blown out by some pop-off turns next turn. But Winter Warfare, counter-offensive, plus 16, plus 8, and hits face with a 19-13 KV and takes game 2, tying up the series 1-1. And the reason I struggled to find a game to show in this series is game 1 was just an absolute utter domination by Kobasnik, largely due because Bamboo just had a terrible hand. Game 2, we saw just Kobasnik's hand, just like he made some misplays. This was the closest game in the series, and this is the game in the series that is most arguably the outcome was based on the skill of the players in the moment. Because in game 3, Kobasnik brought his German Heinz deck again into US midrange and just got utterly bodied. It was not remotely close. He just ran out of units while US midrange did not. The Weakened Duets, Flampanzer, like just all these cards that are the 5th Rangers, again, is another card that greatly pushes the win rate in favor of US German. Just zero chance. And then game 4 was Mobilized versus Joe US, and again, not a chance. Bamboo started going first with double parachute. It just, like, Kobasnik lost 3 in a row with Heinz. And this game, you could argue that it was his fault. The other 2 games, you could not argue it was his fault. Maybe you could argue it's the deck's, showing the deck's weakness. But, yeah, Bamboo is your 3rd finalist, taking it 3-1 over Kobasnik, who just could not get a win with this Heinz deck. It got him this far, but it could not get him into the top 4, which means Kobasnik is in 5th place. Now, the question is, who will be joining him in 5th place, and who will be joining Bamboo, Head, and Bodo in the top 4? Is it going to be me, or is it going to be Vinnie? Now, me versus Vinnie, let's quickly take a look at the decks. We've seen my decks already. So let's take a look at Vinnie's decks. Vinnie has Self-Damage, Jagro with Shin Hodos. So we've seen 5 out of 6 players bring Jagro. We have 3 Shin Hodos, 2 Mitos. Both players we've seen with Shin Hodo so far are 1 to top 4 on winner's side. Both players with Mito dropped down to loser's side. Now, 1 moved forward against an opponent who didn't bring Jagro. So now, we once again get Mito versus Shin Hodo. We've seen this twice already, just in terms of deck lists. And both times, Shin Hodos have seemed to be outshining Mito. So let's see. That's something to keep an eye on. His 3rd deck is US German midrange, because of course, and his 4th deck is Ger Italy Control. Now, you might remember, this is the exact same lineup as Bodo. Now, there's individual card differences, but the lineup is the exact same as Bodo. So, you can expect my ban. I ban Self-Damage again. I'm just going to do the exact same thing as Bodo, as I did against Bodo. Now, Vinnie does something different. My Britain-Italy Control deck was banned by every single opponent in the entirety of top 32 but Vinnie. So this is actually going to be the first time I play it in the tournament. And we will see, is Vinnie correct in not banning it? He instead bans the Soviet France Control deck, which, again, it's a pretty good deck. He saw it absolutely dominate Bodo's US German, so that might be a fear he has. He is afraid of the power of the Petliakov, which is valid. And let's game 1. I brought Britain-Italy Control. I'll actually show you the very end of that game. It is quite an amusing little tidbit. I'll even turn the sound on. This is quite amusing. Keep an eye on my reaction in the top corner and what I am doing with my hand, like what cards I'm hovering over at the top of the screen.
5 HP, and Vinnie had to
this is done! This is done! J King has Commonwealth!
It's Commonwealth!
30.
It's Commonwealth time!
No, J King, you have
not seen it.
Commonwealth! You have Commonwealth, J King! Look at your hand. There we go. He finds it.
Whoa,
Wow, he was so close
I am
to
like
missing
so
it.
close.
I am like embarrassed.
Well,
Wow, look at him.
look at his
Look at him.
face. He almost missed it, and
So, for a little context, I think I was at like 12 health or something the turn before. And that Commonwealth was just a dead card in my hand the entire game, up until that point. And then Vinnie traded in all of his units into my 7th Alpini. And just because of the way Akitas hit, Vinnie healed me up to 30 on his turn. So on my turn, I'm like, okay, he just played Feigned Retreat. I'm like, need to play down Blackwatch. Do I want to Lend-Lease this turn? If so, I should Lend-Lease first. Or maybe I want to play Monsoon Rot just to get that out, put some damage out on the units. Do I throw out a Wellington? And then I'm just like, I'm about to play Blackwatch. And then I'm like, wait, I'm at 30. Wait, I have Commonwealth in hand. Wait, my opponent's at 20. Hold up. It was just so ridiculous moment. I was that close to missing just Commonwealth is lethal in game 1. But yeah, that goes to show. Probably should have banned the Britain-Italy deck. It basically just crushed Jaggro. Even if I didn't have Commonwealth in that situation, I think I probably still would have gone on to win the game. So Britain-Italy gets the win. And again, this is the comfort deck. You bring the comfort deck first. Against Bodo, it was bringing Jaggro first because Britain-Italy was banned, and I went on to lose. So going into Vinnie, I basically said I'm going to bring Britain-Italy. I'm going to bring Soviet France first, unless that gets banned. In that case, I'm going to bring Britain-Italy first. So Britain-Italy got banned, which means we go into game 2, and here we could just take a look at the headquarters.
extra damage.
I can
The guard.
turn the audio down. If we take a look at the headquarters, it is Washington, D.C. versus El Alamein, which means it is my US-France deck versus Italy control. This is the matchup that I was trying to get against Bodo. This is the matchup that decides the outcome of this set. This is arguably the matchup that decides top 4. And I predicted that Vinnie would bring German in game 2. And the reason I did is because I brought US-France last against Bodo. And in past tournaments, I've typically brought sort of the strange deck, the weak deck, the deck with the weak link. It's common for players to bring these last. The deck that needs to get a win against one specific deck, you bring it last. You try to get a win with your other 2 decks, and then get the last deck into a position where it's guaranteed to get into the German-Italy control. So I predicted that Vinnie would bring German-Italy control in game 2. And if he didn't, then I lost, and then I bring it again. And if not, I lost, then I bring it again, and I now have Jaggro and German, US, France, or US, France against Italy. Worst case scenario, he doesn't bring Italy until game 4. In which case, I got my free win, and we go into a game 5 decided by Jaggro versus Italy. However, I get it in game 2. So, this is warning. This is going to be a long game, and this is also my most embarrassing game. You'd think almost missing Commonwealth would be my most embarrassing game. No, this is my most embarrassing game of the tournament, not just on the stream ones, just in the entire top 32. Well, looking at Vinnie's decks, I just like somehow I saw the cards he was running. He was running the 2k Wolf's Grenadier. It's 2/3 that gains +2 health and guard against if your opponent has a blitz unit. I saw he was running those. I saw he was running a Gathering Storm, an autocannon, and I saw Annihilation. So I went to look, does he run the discard package? And I saw Annihilations. So I'm like, okay, he has the Annihilations Wolf packs. Does he run King Tiger? Yes, he runs King Tiger. Okay, I know his deck list. What I failed to see, despite having like literally like a day to look at his deck list, and like an hour and a half knowing I would be playing him to look at his deck list, I missed that he doesn't run Comet and he doesn't run Wolf packs. He does run Annihilations, but he does not run Comet and he does not run Wolfpack. I play around both of those cards to the point of making mistakes, knowing that he does not run them in his deck in this game. And I also go on to play around Wolfpack, although to a lesser degree, in the next game, which does spoil the outcome of this game a little bit. apologies in advance, but I'm sure you could figure out by now, I'm going to win this game. It's going to take a very long time, and we're going to fast forward through a lot of it, but United We Stand Patrol to take out JU. He has a set number of units. Now not JU, take out the autocannon. The JU comes down, but it gets cleaned up by Defend in Depth. The Panther G comes down, but I see he does not run Careless Talks, which means this Hellcat is safe to move up and kill it. Now the Volksgrenadier and the Egg Bomber come down, and I'd like to just point out that Vinnie sort of has the exact hand he wants to have in this game, where it's just all gas, it's all units. Like, he has Annihilations in the bottom of the deck, he has Sudden Strikes in the bottom of the deck, he has one Redoubt, one Lion for a day, but he has a second Lion and a second Redoubt in the bottom of his deck, he has 3 Mare Nostrums in the bottom of his deck, he has a lot of cards which he's not gonna want to draw, but he's hit all units, all gas. Now, I've had responses to all of these, because that's sort of the point of my deck, is to have responses to units, but this is what Vinnie wants to see. So here, Battery to take out Egg Bomber, and just pass against the 2-3, because, yeah, I'm not going to drop 2 cards. And here, this is me playing around Wolfpack. So the reason I don't play Gunship Mission United We Stand to kill the 2-3 is I'm thinking, that puts me down to 3 cards in hand. If he plays Wolfpack and discards Phony War, I could lose. But again, he doesn't have Wolfpacks. And he can't annihilate his own units to make me discard. Research is the only card in his deck that could make me discard, so I could just play United We Stand Gunship Mission to kill it. Now, I probably still wouldn't, because this game's going to fatigue. I don't want to draw that many cards, and playing United We Stand Gunship Mission means it's going to be difficult to Phony War and not draw myself a lot of cards for most of the game. And a 2-3 is just not that scary. I have a lot of health gain. So here, I believe I play Gunship Mission to kill a Ratto. Liberation overdraws the second JU, which is a very good overdraw for me. Vinnie hits face. Deals damage with resistance. I play second Liberation. Overdraw from the D. Okay. Discard. That's his only countermeasure, so I now know he's down. Well, the only deployment-based countermeasure, so now I know any units I play are safe. He plays Schwalb, which is just going to immediately die to a Defend in Depth. He plays Decima to just get another unit out. And here, I have air defense, and now I can just hold up air defense and it kills the Volksgrenadier. However, I'm thinking, he has Comet. I need to keep air defense, and because Comet, and I can't rely on my other countermeasure, Counter Strike, because he could discard Airstrike. Or he could discard the Counter Strike with his Wolfpacks, which again, he doesn't run. I somehow have completely blanked this. In-game, I am still looking at his deck list, and I'm missing the fact that he just does not have Wolfpacks or Comets in his deck list. Now here he plays Leopold, Golden Leopold, very nice. And this is a situation where I need to draw. Like, I'm not just going to go for a DFA 1 and 3. There's a lot of cards I can draw, like a Patrol or a Gunship Mission kills Leopold, Battery kills Leopold, Defend in Depth number 3 kills Leopold. And here I can once again hold up air defense, if I wanted. Even if the Decima attacks first, I can clear it up with the United We Stand. And we see why killing this 2-3 with the air defense the previous turn would have been good. We see why it would have been good, because King Tiger comes down. And I have 2 DFAs, but no way of killing, no way of guaranteeing killing them. Now this, I could do 101st Airborne, attack Decima, leaving him with 2 units, so he can potentially do Mare Nostrum, move up, heal 11. So, knowing his hand, that was probably the correct play to do. Even not knowing his hand, I think this is still a mistake on my part. I go for the 2 and 3 DFA chance. Like, it's a 2 and 3. 2 of his 3 units are dying. So 1 out of the 3 times, King Tiger survives. And if that happens, I need to draw a second DFA, I need to draw Counter Strike, I need to draw a third DFA, I need to draw Counter Strike, I need to draw high altitude bombing. And my idea was I have these Call to the Colonies in my hand, so even if I lose the 2 and 3, I can still do that. That was his best chance to win the game. Right there. Me not holding up airstrike, me not playing the 101st Airborne to almost make a guaranteed 50-50. My worry about playing the 101st Airborne was that if Vinnie just floods the board, instead of attacking with King Tiger, he just plays like a second Panther G, Nakshub, another Volks Grenadier, like he just floods the board and goes up to like 5 or 6 units, all of which are protected from orders in the support line. Well, protected from being targeted with orders, and he does not. And then these DFAs go from a 2 and 3 chance to kill King Tiger to a 2 and 4 chance, a 2 and 5 chance, a 2 and 6 chance. So basically, my worry was that Vinnie would just play out a bunch more units. Now, if you look at Vinnie's hand, his hand was entirely orders, so he couldn't have done that. So it would have been the correct play. However, I think going for the 2 and 3 chance is still probably correct. 101st takes out this Volks Grenadier unit, and from here, there was 0 chance. Now, I thought there was still going to be a chance because of Wolfpack's discarding key cards, potentially, and Comet dealing recurrent damage if I don't kill it with my countermeasures. Now, again, he doesn't run Wolfpacks or Comets, so this game is over, essentially. I don't know this, but by this point, I'm thinking that I'm very likely to win this game, but I don't know. So here, he goes up for research. He discards his own Nakshub, discards Call to the Colonies, healing, pretty good, and a patrol, less important. Pretty mediocre, like middle of the road discard. From my perspective, I am glad he did not hit either countermeasure, because again, I'm playing around Comet, but again, he doesn't run Comet. So here, he plays Africa Corps, picks the Tiger IE. This is basically the last threat in his deck. He has this Tiger IE and I think a second Panther G, and those are all the threats. So he just plays it out. Again, I can just hold up Counter-Strike. Worst case scenario, he has Heinschel trigger Counter-Strike, and then, I don't think there's really a world where he has Heinschel plus 2 additional units that I can't remove to stop Hab being a guaranteed kill. However, I know how many cards he has left in this deck. I know high altitude bombing it's fine playing high altitude bombing. It's an 8 cost to DFA. That is fine. And then again, that part isn't really a misplay, but it's a play being informed by a mistaken reading of his deck. So the play is fine, and I probably still would have made it even knowing what was in his deck. However, the reason I'm immediately making that play is because I think what's in his deck, which isn't. So again, this is Stars and Stripes Gunship Mission. This is fine. I don't want to get too many cards out of my hand because of Wolfpacks, but again, he doesn't run Wolfpacks. So here's Volks Grenadier. Vinnie's just essentially playing out every unit in his deck. Cross of Lorraine kills it, plays Bologna Regiment. And I know he has 1 Panther G left, which is why I'm saving the 3rd DFA. So I end up just passing. I also know I have another Hellcat, which his not depth charges from the deep is gone, so I know Hellcat's a guaranteed kill on Panther G if he draws the second Panther G, but I don't have my second Hellcat, so I'm just making sure I don't need to kill this Bologna Regiment. For some reason, he doesn't move up, and by for some reason, I mean I have 2 torpedo attacks in my deck, and haven't played either, so if he moves this up, it immediately dies to torpedo attack, from his point of view. However, keeping it in the support line, what are you going to do with it? Why wouldn't you just move it up, and if I have torpedo attack, I have torpedo attack? But here he has 9 cards in hand, plays out a resistance, pass, I now draw the Hellcat, which means I can play DFA if I want. But at this point, I'm like, I don't need to play it. He plays Arado, and then Sun strikes his own Arado. I don't understand this play particularly. It gets cards out of his hand, however, what are you trying to draw for? If not, you need to kill me with units. It's not going to matter, he's dead anyways, this didn't throw the game or anything, but it's just sort of Why are you killing your own units? You have a very limited number of units left in the game. So here I actually choose to play Phony War because it draws him a card. That was the only chance Phony War had to draw him a card, because he was slightly ahead on Fatigue, so now I think I'm like 1 card ahead on Fatigue. So here, I finally just choose to do DFA so that I don't mill. Now he plays the Panther G, which means Hellcat moves up and kills it. And I was not holding up any of these countermeasures until I saw the Heinkel gun. Because now with Heinkel dead, and he again sudden strikes his own unit, this one makes more sense because the Heinkel will just continue to fill his hand up. Now with the Heinkel gone, I think he has no more blitz units. He can no longer trigger my countermeasures with anything other than Comet. So I'm guaranteed to win unless Wolfpack discards both countermeasures. But again, he doesn't run Comet. He doesn't run Wolfpacks. So here I'm just counting the number of units in his deck. You might see me hold up, or like counting a number in my hand a couple times. That was me counting the number of units left in his deck. Like I was trying to like match a piece of removal to every potential unit he has left to make sure that I don't like be too inefficient. Make sure that I just have the guaranteed win. This 5th Rangers is never getting played because I don't want it to be annihilated and potentially discard a good card. With research, I can just double research, heal. Here he just passes again, draws a 9/8/9, but he can't get it buffed because of this Bologna Regiment. So he passes again, and he's just going to mill a card. Mills Root Out. I mean, at this point, I'm not actually sure if he has any good cards left in his deck. Plays it up with the 9/8/9, eats the torpedo attack. I'm holding up 2 cards. I'm saying 2 as in 2 units left in his deck. However, that is, I'm literally reading his deck list, counting the number of units in his deck based on the ones he has and has not played, and I am still counting this invisible comet. I am reading his deck list over and over and over while we are playing, and I miss the fact that he does not run comet. This is easily the most silly thing I have ever done in a cards tournament, ever. But here, he's now out of cards. I'm saying 2, but the answer is 1. He has 1 unit left in his deck, and it is a Decima. So it does not matter that I'm 1 card ahead in Fatigue, because I have 43 health, and 2 Dukes, and a Cross of Lorraine, and a Strategic Bombing. Which means I get the win with the US-France. I get the win I could not get against Bodo. I go up 2-0. I now have 3 chances to win with Jagro. And that was the closest game of the set. I'm just going to show game 3 anyways, just because it's pretty fast. We'll see. I keep Raiden Brigade in the opening hand, but I don't get great alternatives. I don't get an amazing start. However, in this situation, Vinnie should play Flampanzer. Or Vinnie should play Heinkel, but I would play Flampanzer just because Heinkel gets punished very hard by 35T. But he makes the mistake. He plays off curve, and he plays the Volksgrenadier. Now, the reason you should play Flampanzer is it removes the unit from the front line, just removes the threat, plays on curve, gets 3/3 body. The Flampanzer can now respond to anything I move to the front line, and I can't kill off the Akita on my turn. And on Vinnie's turn, he can do attack with Flampanzer and play Volksgrenadier. Maybe not in that order, if Akita's my only blitz unit, but basically it's just plays off curve to not have played Flampanzer last turn. And not only does it play off curve, it plays really hard into Radiant Brigade, which is I kept in my opening hand specifically for this 2-cost Volksgrenadier, and now Vinnie has been forced to play off curve, and he's in a really awkward position. Because if he had Root Out this turn, he would probably play it, but he does not have Root Out, unfortunately for him. So it goes with this play, which is really good if I don't have a 35T, which I don't. It's very good if I don't have a Whirlwind, which I don't. However, what I do have is 2 Type 93s, which means I can trade off the Type 94, move 2 units up to the front line. This is the only way to kill the autocannon. And again, if he has Root Out this turn, he's going to play Root Out this turn, but he does not have Root Out this turn. He can take out both Type 93s with Flampanzer Sudden Strike, but this game is already much different than my Jaguar versus Jur Italy game against Bodo Burrito. I have way more cards in hand. I've forced Vinnie to go through a lot of his resources, rather than just him holding up decisive. Like against Bodo, he just kept holding up the same decisive defense, which prevented me from dealing damage. In this case, he's playing out card after card after card to prevent me from dealing damage. Excuse me. So in this position, Vinnie's under a decent amount of pressure. He has the Marinostum, however, that's only going to heal 4, and the Flame Panzer's dead anyways. He can trade and do research. What he chooses to do here is Heinkel plus Marinostum, kill the Radiant Brigade, so in theory, this Heinkel sticks. However, it dies to just about anything, including this top-decked 35T. Or I can do a Rado into this bombing raid, which I believe I do end up playing the bombing raid rather than the 35T. Just because Vinnie is getting into a position where he has enough credits to do Spoils of War for a root out. So he says he has, if root out's in the next 4 cards of his deck, he can play it the next turn. So I have to be conscious about that. And another reason is I'm still thinking about wolf packs. I'm thinking the only way I lose this game is if he wolf packs me down. He doesn't run wolf packs. I don't know why I'm thinking this. He just doesn't run the card. Jägerbomber is a good one because it threatens to have a unit for a Marinostum. I've seen him play 1 Marinostum, but he could have a second very easily. Now, obviously he doesn't, but I don't know this. So I move up Akita, 35T, 22nd Infantry, go face. Now, my idea here is that if he plays Root Out, there's a 50-50 Akita just kills the Jägerbomber. Now, if he does Marinostum attack Root Out, he is left with a unit, but 35T can clean it up if the Akita hits it. If not, I can pin it. I get the draw off the 22nd. And we see Vinnie has the Root Out, but he does not have the Marinostum, unfortunately. So here, he has a couple different plays. I'm actually a fan of just doing Decima on the 22nd Infantry. I think playing Root Out here might be a mistake. Just try to greed out a little bit. And that's exactly what he does. Good play by Vinnie. Just sort of trying to get more value out of it. He knows he has very limited card draw. So he needs to try to get as much value out of his cards as possible. This Dina, again, just draw cards. Picks up the 3rd Type 93. Akita hits the Decima, which is quite big. Means I can do Type 93, trade in a Rado. Hit face for 3. Plus 35T means I hit face for an additional 3. I drop Vinnie to 5 health. And he can Root Out. He can Root Out attack. Clear all of these units. However, he still does not have the Marinostum. Now if he did, it would just get pinned. So he does Root Out. Clear. 3 credits left. He decides to leave Dina on board because I'm out of all Type 93s, so this can't have its attack buffed. This is just a straight-up 0-1 plane that will stay 0-1 plane forever, which is pretty funny. And he chooses to go for research, adds Flying Bomb to hand, just try to be credit efficient next turn. And here, I'm in 1 damage off lethal with Shiden. I could just do Shiden and hit him in the face, but again, I'm still a little worried about Marinostum. I decide to pin it to play around Marinostum and move up 2 Medo regiments. The idea being I can just trade in 1 Medo regiment next turn and do Shiden. But he top decks Bologna regiment, which means I no longer have lethal with Shiden, and I no longer have the ability to kill the Bologna regiment because I played 1 of the surprise attacks. But I top deck 3rd Medo regiment, and unfortunately he does get a situation where if he has the Marinostum, he can heal for 4, which would make things really awkward. Like, potentially even game-losingly awkward if he does top deck like an Annihilation or something, or I don't draw into a Feigned Retreat for a few turns. Unfortunately, he does not hit the Marinostum, and Medo number 2 and Medo number 3 are able to deal the 6 damage necessary to end out the game through the guard So in this situation, Bodo was better than Shinhodo. So yeah, what we saw is in the games where Shinhodo won, Shinhodo was better. In the games where Bodo won, Bodo was better. They have their strengths and differences, but more importantly, that little sort of meta-analysis aside, I am in the top 4 as well. I've made it into the top 4 back-to-back now. Very exciting. Unfortunate for Vinnie, he lost 3-0. And yeah, he did not deserve to lose 3-0. That's quite unfortunate for him. But yeah, so the top 4, which will be played on the first weekend of December, will have Bodo Burrito versus Head, the winner of which advances to the grand finals. So Head and Bodo Burrito are both guaranteed top 3. They are guaranteed a minimum of $1,500. Myself versus Bamboo, the loser is out in 4th. The winner will advance and play the loser of Head versus Bodo Burrito, and the winner there will advance to the grand finals to play the winner of Head versus Bodo Burrito. Which means, theoretically, we could have a grand finals of myself versus Bodo going for the rematch, which would be really exciting. It could be Head versus Bamboo going for the rematch. We could have something entirely different. Any number of combinations. Well, not any number, but you understand what I mean. That will be played again December 4th, I believe. Maybe December 3rd. The first weekend of December. And until then, the 4 of us are going to be practicing decks, testing things out, preparing. We have quite a bit of time before next deck submission. We get to bring new decks. And yeah, that's going to be exciting. So expect coverage of that when it comes, when it arrives, and you should definitely watch the World Championship stream live if you can on the official KARDS Twitch channel or the official KARDS YouTube channel. They usually put in, they always put in an even extra effort on the production value for the World Championship. And yeah, it's going to be awesome, and I feel just so happy that I get this chance of competing in the top 4 again. Now, like, I think I've certainly earned it by playing throughout the year, all the practices I've done, all the decks I tested, all of the interesting lineups I brought. I certainly don't think I don't deserve it, but there's so many players throughout this year played so well, and there's so much tougher competition this year, and so many players deserve to be in that top 4 as well. I'm honestly kind of humbled that I get this opportunity again. But that brings us to the end of this video. It's now almost 2 hours long. If you got through this far, thank you very much for watching. And if you're familiar with my original content, like going back a year now, my tournament analysis, you will know I used to spend like 3 hours on like a best of 3 set. Like I would just go on forever. Now 47 minutes. I hope that leaves you satisfied. I hope you didn't think that was too boring. Let me know what you think of this format, and sort of picking and choosing the interesting sets to show while going over how they went. And follow me on Twitch. I stream occasionally. Join my Discord if you haven't. Like, share, subscribe, YouTube things. And I'll catch you in the next one. Thanks for watching.